Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Money, Sex, and God. This is our opportunity to talk about all things taboo, all things underneath the shadows of sexuality, of creation, of spirituality. And I am super duper excited for today's guest, who is basically one of the witches that speaks about this work really brilliantly. She wrote a book called Existential, Kink that if you haven't checked it out already, make sure to check it out. It's one of the books that I recommend in my pleasure creation course. So it's a fabulous book, and I had a blast reading it. And I am really excited to bring on Dr. Carolyn Elliott. You can read more about her in her bio. If you're watching us live, just say hi. Let us know you're watching, and then also know I'll be checking the feed for questions. So we'll make this as interactive as possible. If you have any questions, let us know. But Carolyn, I'd love if you could just start by telling us a little bit more about yourself before we dive into you.
Oh, wow, about me. Well, hi, Genevieve. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. Let's see. I am a teacher and a coach. I teach primarily about the alchemy of the psyche. So connecting the conscious and the unconscious together so we can create really powerful, dramatic, positive change in our lives. Let's see, what do I do? Yeah, I wrote Existential Kink. I have a PhD in critical and cultural studies. I really enjoy weird stuff, John Waters movies. And
yes, I'm from Baltimore. I love John Waters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I sometimes have like lucid dreams that I'm in this like really shitty diner in Baltimore. And it's like there's all these other lucid dreamers there, and I'm like, yeah.
You would fit right into Baltimore. You'd totally.
I feel like Pittsburgh and Baltimore are sister cities.
Totally. And you also, Existential Kink is really what, people know you for, right? Like I know that you have another, and I didn't even know about this, but you have another book that they say it's like on your bio, it says it's a cult favorite book.
It has a major devoted following. I mean, it has a perhaps petite yet powerful devoted following. Yeah, that was when I first got into coaching and teaching online. It was all about creativity. That was before I was afraid to say out loud that I'm into magic and the occult. That was back in the before times. Oh my God, when did that book come out? It came out in like 2013, and I wrote it in 2011. So 2013, after that book came out, was when I started teaching online as a magician, as a witch. So it was, that is my older book.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to read it now. I'm super excited. So you said, we're throwing around words here already. And my community, those of you that are watching, I see people commenting like, everyone, I love her. Woo! They're all excited. But you've been throwing around words like witch and magic, right? And I've got my ideas of what that means. And I'm curious, because you're tying in so many different things together in your witchdom, in your magic artistry. Can you speak a little bit to what that means to you? What's this magic that you speak of?
Yeah, totally. So, of course, there's people who self-identify as witches and magicians. My use of the term is actually a bit more broad. I consider that there's lots of people who don't identify with those terms who fall under the rubric, because I consider somebody to be a witch or a magician if they are in active exploration of the contents of their unconscious, both the shadowy, dark, intense parts and the beautiful, brilliant, divine parts. So for example, by my definition, I consider Oprah to be one of the most powerful witches there is. She's done a whole lot of deep transformative work on herself. Let's see, what's more, my usual working definition of magic that I like to share with people. There's a bunch out there, but this is my favorite, maybe because I coined it. Is that magic is active participation in synchronicity. So we've all had synchronous experiences. We've all had occasions where, there was just this amazing alignment between our inner reality and the outer reality that just like, has blown our minds. So magic is just like being like, okay, great. Well, we can make that happen, deliberately. We can create densities of meaning. And that's what I think that's, all magic, all spell casting involves creating a density of meaning.
Yes.
And then the universe is a poet. Maybe you've noticed the universe, it's very poetical. The stars, the moon, the sun, the trees, right? And the universe cannot resist rhyming. It creates these rhymes with itself. These, I like to say, and there's physicists who like to say that the universe is a fractal hologram. Yes. And a fractal is a pattern that repeats itself and is the same in various iterations. And a hologram means that every part contains the whole. So if what this means for magic, the famous line from the Emerald Tablet is "as above, so below," that there's this relationship of correspondence and matching patterns throughout all levels of reality. So if I create a specific density of meaning within my emotional self, within my environment, on my person, I can expect to see things that match that. And especially the great psychologist and wizard, Carl Jung, he wouldn't admit to being a wizard while alive, but he definitely was one. He liked to say that synchronicities become active in the presence of an archetype. So if you look at like what magic is about, it's basically about deliberately invoking specific archetypes. Yeah. So if I make a Venus talisman, it's going to be, it's going to have rose oil, it's going to have pearl powder, it's going to have all of these, might have peacock feathers in it, might have rose quartz, all of these Venusian densities of meaning along with her sigils and everything, because I'm invoking the archetype associated with love and sweetness and harmony and attraction. And it's basically true in every culture around the world at all times. This is what magic entails. So what I've become very, very interested in, so I still love making talismans. I do it all the time. I love making, I call it like arts and crafts type magic, but I'm also very, very interested in, so what is a synchronicity? A synchronicity is a series of events with a shared resonance of meaning. So basically, and this connects perfectly with sort of conventional law of attraction teachings, whatever resonance of meaning I assign myself, I can expect that I will encounter events, opportunities, relationships, people, whatever, that share that resonance. Right. So when I was a self-pitying asshole, which I was for many years and I can still dive back into from time to time, I was surrounded by other self-pitying assholes. Surprise, totally. Surprise. And self-pitying assholes do not have the best financial and emotional and creative opportunities to offer. So my life was pretty small. Over the years, as I've been working, I've been changing the density and the resonance of meaning that I have internally. So now my resonance of meaning is something along the lines of sovereign god queen who also enjoys filth and violation and cruelty from time to time. Okay, right. So that's what I'm vibrating at. So most of my experience is like this, tremendous gorgeousness punctuated by these like spicy bits of jank, and it's amazing. And I'm so grateful for it. And I tell people these days that I'm a little bit of an evangelical hermeticist. So Hermeticism, like I referenced the Emerald Tablet earlier, Hermeticism was a thing in Alexandria in ancient Egypt. It was sort of like from 200 BCE to 300 CE. So surrounding that time before and after the death and life of Jesus, gets nonlinear. Anyways. There was this very specific cosmopolitan understanding of magic that evolved at that time, combining Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Jewish, Christian, Babylonian, all sorts of amazing influences, including some Hindu, even very, very interesting admixture. And that bloomed into something known as Hermeticism. And they called it Hermeticism because the ancient Greek god Hermes is the god of meaning and magic, and also money, interestingly. So anyways, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, I'm an evangelical hermeticist. So this tablet, the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, with the mentioning the relationship of analogy that everything has to each other, I think it's a great way of summing up magic in general. Like I said, all magic, whether it's like indigenous shamanic practices or really elaborate Renaissance ceremonial magic, or, you know, chaos magic of somebody jerking off to sigils, wonderful technique.
Sex magic.
Whatever it is, the Hermeticism sums it up. So I'm an evangelical Hermeticist. So I go around like, dear sir or madame, have you heard the good word of Hermes Trismegistus, that the above is as the below to fulfill the miracle of the one thing?
Right.
Yeah. So that's a bit about, I'm rambling, so I'm gonna dip it, Genevieve.
It's so delicious. It's so delicious. Thank you. And it's just true. Like, it's not like what you're giving us, just everyone watching, everyone listening in on a replay. It's not like you're giving us a framework. It's actually just reality. Like, this is actually reality. So I just want people to drop into that. And to recognize that results appear, right? Like, you and I have thriving businesses with this reality. We have thriving relationships with this reality, and we can tap into it internally in sovereign beings in order to create it externally. Duh, right? And I would say it's a simple thing, but it's not necessarily easy. And I would love to hear about, I was loving reading your book. So I just have to say, I have this thing with bringing on former drug addicts onto this podcast. I don't know what it is. I think I'm a former drug addict. People know my story. And like, I seem to find all of them. Like, I just find them. And then we all realize there's bigger, more, better, right, out there. So I'd love to hear your story starting from the drug addict part, just so that we can stay thematically if possible.
Absolutely. Well, so I had a pretty screwy childhood and sexual abuse and all sorts of messed up stuff. So by the time I was a teenager, I fell in with an interesting crowd that was very artsy and liked to imagine that they were like Andy Warhol and the Velvet Underground. So shooting heroin became the thing. And that was like, you know, it was a very dark, harrowing scene to be a part of. And I just reached a point with it where I was like, well, I guess I'm going to die here, or I'm going to leave and get clean. So by the grace of all that is, I was able to get up the gumption to like leave the shitty boyfriend I was with, who I was doing all the dope with. And I think I was about 19 when I did that. And I was in college at the time. And somehow, this is what a perfectionist I am, I was maintaining a perfect grade average while
I did the same thing. I had 3.9 GPA and shooting up at the same time. I don't understand.
Overachieving dope addicts. I don't know. It's a thing. It exists. I'm glad to meet another one. I never met another one.
I know, me too. It makes me giggle so much. I love that.
Yeah. And they say, I heard in the rooms of recovery that you'll get clean when the addiction threatens something that truly matters to you. And what truly mattered to me was my grade point average. And when it actually started to dip a little bit, I was like, all right, I'm out. So, because it was just like so big to my ego, my ego could not take that being shaken. So blessed be my vanity. I got out of there, and I was in 12-step recovery for 10 years. And I am eternally grateful for it, because it taught me the basics of how not to lie, cheat, steal, taught me basic fundamental morality and being of service, and also how to share about all of my stuff without shame, which is one of the keystones of my success on the internet. So thank you, Rooms, for that. And I just sort of got to a point with it where I don't know exactly what it was. Oh yeah, well, I sort of started a few things. I was like, well, this is cool, I'm clean, I have a spiritual principles in my life. I'm still really, really broke, and I'm still kind of like dating all of these like super twisted people, and I'm still there's something missing here. And for me, the arc was I got involved in this very interesting sex cult that sort of imploded. I was always sort of on the periphery of it. I wasn't in the heart of the beast, but I did learn some interesting things about sexuality and sales that were very healing and very wonderful. And I also saw some very dark things, some like abuses of those powers that also gave me powerful lessons about what not to do. But I got involved in tantra so I sort of think of like the rooms of recovery as like there's like Theravada or Hinayana Buddhism that focuses on asceticism and like morality. And it's only after you've really got that in place that it's recommended that you go into like Vajrayana and Tantra and like working with those energies. So I feel like, 12-step recovery gave me a beautiful foundation in morality in the Hinayana. And then it just became time for me to go into the Tantra world because that's what was needed for the healing of my love and sex and money, creativity issues. So I was in that sex cult. And then, it all imploded in various ways. And I wound up in Indonesia for a while and about Bali. It was fun. And then when I came back to my hometown of Pittsburgh and I got involved. I was hanging out with really wholesome hippies who were really into the Red Road, like vision questing, sun dancing, beautiful, beautiful people. And hanging out with them and supporting them in their vision quests and sun dances, because I do like to support people while they do very difficult ascetic things. I don't necessarily like to do them, but yes, I will go on a road trip with you. I started getting invited, and I'm also super grateful to this, to medicine ceremonies. So peyote, ayahuasca, and that opened up a whole other level of reality for me, and also goes hand in hand with tantra, like the poison path, using intense substances to create consciousness, greater consciousness. So that's a little bit of a summary, and here I am.
Beautiful. And so it sounds like your whole journey, your whole life was one big alchemical journey in many ways, right? That everything has a congruent space in the future, right? Everything that happened in the past. And that's how I like to mirror and look at my lives. And I encourage everyone listening, like, check out yours and see where you can see the tie-ins. Because the depth of darkness, right? That darkness that you went into. Well, you tell us, like, how do you think that's kind of gifted you in what you're doing and creating now, like going into those darker spaces?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. So the weird thing is that today I am infinitely grateful for experiences that were very, very painful and that nearly destroyed me. So, even the experiences of sexual abuse growing up, and the experiences of being addicted to heroin, the weird things that I saw in that sex cult.
Like, I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah. There's been some things. Yeah. So all of that, I like to think that, evil, one way of thinking about evil is it's shit, it really is shit. And as shit, it stinks, and good God, it's horrible to be like, if you're surrounded by it, just how horrible that is. And also it is fertilizer, and it absolutely, all of that, like, it was like I was gifted with a great dose of fertilizer. And now, and I was also somehow received the ability to learn how to work with it. And in working with it, now all of that evil, all of that shit is absolutely feeds this astounding garden in my life, where I have this big 7-figure business, hot man, beautiful baby. I'm like very, very grateful and very, very happy. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a quip kind of way of putting it. Like, it's obviously there's a lot of grief and a lot of horror and a lot of trauma. It's not a snap to work with, certainly. But once we do learn how, and once we commit to that process and go further along with it, I'm at this interesting place now where I have this relationship with evil where I see that it's like, there's no need to ever create more of it. Like, there's no need to run out and go create more evil. Like, there's already totally enough of it. But for the evil that's there, I have love for it. And that's a scandalous thing to say. And that's, sometimes I worry when I say that aloud, people are going to think that I'm some sort of like sociopathic killer or something. Yep. But it's just like, love is able to love its opposite. And if it's not able to love its opposite, it's probably not really love. It's probably like righteousness or something. Yes. So I feel like my ability to love has expanded over the years, and my ability to like have lovingness in the presence of like cruelty or evil, I'm really, really grateful for, because that's what allows me to have happiness that doesn't disintegrate the minute something scary or bad shows up in my experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I'm just hearing you talk about how love loves its opposite. And I just want everyone to make sure they're really letting themselves drop into that, right? So if there's a place in your life that feels like you're putting it down or smushing it away or hating it, right? Well, you have a brilliant mechanism for this. It's similar to what I teach in self-pleasure, which I think is so much fun, because sex magic is magic. Magic is magic is magic, right? It's like, doop. And it's why I love referring people to your work, because it's like, here, look at it again, said a different way. Look at it again, said a different way, because there is only really one thing, right? And here it is. But EK, right? Your existential kink, the process of that. And what I love about that is that you're not asking people to go and think about it forever and ever, to go, which is a lot of the old drudgery of personal development, right? You're not asking people to go make a list of 8,000 reasons that whatever, like, the 12 steps used to do, or go atone, right? Like, talk to us about existential kink and the kind of what it is, in case people yet haven't read your book, which they're absurd if they haven't. You guys should read the book. So then talk to us about how, I'm really curious about, how did you come to create it? That's what I'm most curious about. If you could tell us that, it'd be really cool.
Yeah. So real quick, in summary, existential kink is a method of getting what you want by getting off on what you don't. So it's inspired, of course, by BDSM, by like bedroom and dungeon kink around the world, where people create agreements and scenes and, safe words with each other, where they go ahead and they go into sensations, power dynamics, situations that probably, if they just happened in daily life, they wouldn't like them very much, but they really enjoy those situations, being tied up, being spanked.
This community knows this very well. We just interviewed Orpheus Black last week, a professional dom. So you guys can go in and check his interview out to understand that even more. But yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
Totally. So basically one day I was, it was a lot of things. I started to realize that, okay, how do I wind this back here? So existential kink is also a meditation process and a life attitude, where in the meditation, basically we set time aside and we spend time getting in touch with the sensations of a situation that we do not like. So I started with the sensation of, I was working as a life coach, still am, and I was aware of these people who were like charging $1,000 an hour. And to me, that was just insane. Like, I'd grown up with people who worked in nonprofits, and like $25 an hour is good money, right? So like when I was hearing about these other coaches charging $1,000 an hour, who in my judgment were like less good coaches than me, I was like, this is, it drove me crazy. And it made me really examine some of my beliefs about money because I was really still broke at the time. And, couch surfing and doing all these sorts of things. So I started to get really curious, and I was doing the work of Byron Katie, which I still strongly recommend as a warm up for existential kink. Love, love, love Byron Katie. She's one of my favorite witches in the universe. And I was questioning this belief. People should want to pay me lots of money. And I was asking the Byron Katie questions. Is it true? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I react when I believe that thought? Who would I be without that thought? And I got to the turnarounds. And at the time, I'd been doing a lot of tantric meditation, sex practice stuff. So my sexual energy was flowing pretty strong. And I got to this turnarounds. And so in the Byron Katie process, you turn this initial statement around to self, opposite, another. And I did a turnaround that was like, no one should ever want to pay me anything ever. And I read that out loud, and I felt this like zing through my body, like my clitoris like throbbed, and I was like, yes, no one should ever, yes. And just like this deep erotic attachment to being devalued, and which I was sort of aware of because I'd always had like, kinky bondage, whatever, slave girl fantasies.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't realize how much that like devaluation kink, the scarcity kink was like actually alive in my work life. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I was like, well, hot damn, there it is. I'm not just like a freak in the bedroom. I don't just have BDSM special time kink. I have an existential kink that affects my whole life. I was like, whoa. So, I've always been very interested in this idea of like, healing everything with love and embracing everything. So, existential kink meditation developed out of this, where once I realized the spark of this pleasure and this desire that was there, I was like, I just need to set time aside to really feel this and really set aside whatever shame and guilt that I have about it. So in EK, we set a timer and we feel into the sensations of a don't like situation. So for me, the don't like was like not getting paid much, being broke all the time, scrambling to pay the rent that I was paying to roommates for the right to sleep on their couch, all of this stuff that, and just, saying things to myself like, I'm allowed to enjoy everything in my experience. It's okay for me to have desire for this. Because, people talk about acceptance, and acceptance, all right, nice. But what I found is that I actually have, and I believe that all humans have, unconscious desires for bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like we desire it. And if I can get in touch with that desire and that eros for the bad stuff, for the no money, for the shitty boyfriends, for the whatever, and like feel the desire and feel the way that my life is giving me the fulfillment of this desire. So that's what existential kink is about. It's about setting time aside to just do that. So I would just like lay there and let myself feel this like orgasmic pleasure of being like so devalued and so unwanted, and like just, the hot humiliating shame of this like sub-zero bank account, and like standing in line at the food bank on freezing December mornings because I had to spend all my money on paying my student loan or whatever. Like it's not just accepting, but absolutely erotically embracing experience, going into that deep level of surrender. I feel like that's where the healing is at. Like we live in an erotic universe. No life would exist if it weren't for desire. The law of attraction teachers are absolutely right. Desire creates everything. It's just that we have these unconscious desires that are very dark.
Yeah.
And, of course, nobody consciously wants bad stuff. Nobody wakes up in the morning and it's like, hot damn, I just can't wait to get humiliated today by having negative $1,000 in my bank account. Won't that be great? Nobody thinks that. And yet that still operates in many of us. And, there's different theories about why this may be true. And like, I feel like I've been talking about this and not a lot of other people have been talking about this in the popular self-help arena, because it is a very, very offensive idea to the ego. It's like nobody wants to hear, like, one of the axioms of EK is having is evidence of wanting. And it's just endlessly offensive to be like, oh, if I have something in my life, that means that some part of me unconsciously wants it. Lots of people hate that idea. It's so rude. It's so victim blaming, but it's not. It's actually, I mean, I like to think that it's actually giving agency and empowering.
Yeah, extremely
people.
empowering versus the victim narrative. Totally.
Thank you. Yeah, but it is challenging to work with. So I think that's why it has not been discussed much, but it's also the pioneers of psychotherapy were very, very well aware of it. Freud, Jung, Lacan all talked about it in various ways. Freud talked about psychic masochism.
Yeah.
Jung talked about the shadow, which has desires that the conscious mind does not approve of. Desires for bad stuff. Lacan talked about jouissance, which is pleasure that's so unbearable, it's just overwhelming. So it gets put into the unconscious where it then has creative power. Because that's the interesting thing about it. The unconscious is the part of us that creates our nighttime dreams, like these whole like movie, splendid, blockbuster creations. The unconscious is the creative, the generative part of us. It's the womb, it's the feminine part of us that, whatever is implanted there gestates and gets birthed.
Yes.
So if you want to see what you've been gestating and birthing, you just take a look at your life.
Yeah, totally.
It's not a big mystery. Like, it's actually not that hard to make the unconscious conscious. You don't have to spend 30 years in psychotherapy. I mean, dream work is great, but you don't just have to do dream work for decades. Just take a look at your life and it will show you exactly what your unconscious desires, fascinations, curiosities are. And if you can deal with that, if you can be rigorously honest with yourself, which recovery is great practice for.
Yes.
If you can be rigorously honest with yourself and look at this and be like, oh yeah, and obviously it's staggering to do. So that's why it's a practice where we just set aside like 15 minutes a day and just take in a little bit and just let ourselves know, like, this is absolutely all humans have desires and attachments for fucked up stuff. You're not special because you are creating this bad thing. You're not like uniquely horrible monster. It's just a quirk of how human consciousness operates. And if you're willing to become aware of it and get off on it and celebrate it, you can become free of it. Like Carl Jung said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. So that point about fate is also a key point about magic in general. So like I said, Carl Jung was a wizard. And this is something that we talk about a lot in my membership, Wealth, the relationship between like psychology and magic. Because there's lots of magical cultures that have this very big idea of a relationship with one's fate. So for example, like the Norse, if somebody was really powerful magically, they said, oh, well, they know how to dialogue with their fate, because the fate was a character that appeared to people a few hours before they died and led them into the underworld, usually somebody of the opposite sex, somebody erotically attractive to the person. But witches and sorcerers were the ones who didn't just see that figure right before they died, who knew how to contact and relate with it, and thus influence and change their own fate. And the same idea can be found in Persian, like Zoroastrian magic, where they were working with Frivashis. It can be found in ancient Greek magic, where people talked about the agathos daemon, or the good spirit that accompanied you throughout your life, the Roman genius. And in Western esotericism, it's usually talked about as the holy guardian angel, which is what Crowley and all the Golden Dawn stuff was after. So anyways, this being, whatever we're calling it, fate, agathos daemon, Fravashi, holy guardian angel, self with a capital S, which is what Jung called it.
Right.
It's with us, and it is the unconscious. It's the personification of the unconscious. And if we start learning how to make that channel of communication broader, both by doing magic and by doing divination, where we're, interpreting our dreams, interpreting tarot cards, runes, I Ching, whatever you want to, those are means of dialoguing with it. And then with magic, we send messages into it, both with existential kink and with talismans. Anyways, I could talk all day, but we do this in my membership, Wealth, which reopens for application on September 21st. So anybody listening, I do hope that you decide to apply. You can find the info on my website, which is carolyngraceelliott.com/wealth. Will take you to the page with all the description of it. But what I love about Wealth is it's an alchemical community. So we really support each other and celebrate each other in these like kinky, nasty, fucked up, hot places so that we all learn how to, you know, be totally rich and happy and have everything that we want. And it works. And you can see all the testimonials on the page. So I'm very excited for lots more people to join us.
Yum. And I, you know, those of you that are watching know, and that have watched me before know how much I talk about alchemical containers and community and the importance of that. So just echoing, like when you're in that community, there's something that happens that's fucking epic, right? When there's more than one person doing the alchemy at one time, right? And then you said the 29th is the beginning. Is that right? Is that the
21st is when the application begins. The applications are open from the 21st to the 28th. So it is a selective program. We don't take everybody. But please work up the courage to apply. If you don't get in, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It just, maybe we're not the best program for you.
Right.
But I'm just, oh boy. What you just said about alchemical community, I created Wealth because the sex cult that I was in served that alchemical community role for me. And then it imploded because it was all based on like super high ticket, like super high pressure sales. And even though there were so many like beautiful, exciting things in that community, it wasn't sustainable. And so Wealth is very accessibly priced. It's $99 a month. And there's a huge level of support and social events within that. And I'm just really excited about that personally, because I love high ticket, fancy mastermind programs. I do them, I run them, I participate in them. And also, you know, it's just not where everybody's at. So I really like having that accessibility.
I love it. That's beautiful. And so many of you too are also going to come to Pleasure Alchemy this weekend, which I'll be putting on. So I love it because that's next weekend, the 25th to the 27th. So you could do that and then join Wealth, like to bring you further along your alchemical journey. So it's really beautifully tied together, right? You have the whole, everything's already paved out for you. If you're sitting here going, how do we do this? We've done it for you. Here it is. Carolyn, thank you so much for existing, number one, and number two, for being on this podcast and hanging out with us. I love your wizardry and the way you put things into words. Your book is incredible. Your community is incredible. I'm not in it, but I have so many clients that are in it and they talk about it all. They're going over here going, oh my God, we love Wealth. So I hope everyone else gets to join in. And I hope that you and I get to speak again soon. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day. Bye, honey.